WTC-SWE. Go for launch. Go.
This jungle holds a secret, a treasure abandoned 2,000 years ago.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour.
It's a secret unlocked from outer space with a breathtaking new technology. Sensors mounted in satellites and on spacecraft can see what the human eye cannot. Ancient cities hidden under jungle canopies, entire civilizations buried under great dunes of desert sand. This is sky archaeology. The science behind sky archaeology was developed for the military to guide smart bombs to their targets and missiles across the countryside to strike with deadly precision. The accuracy of guided missiles and smart bombs depends on detailed, accurate images of the Earth made from space. Those same images are changing the way civilians work.
What's happened in the last 25 years is we've started to look at our own planet using tools first developed in military circles, also developed for deep space exploration of Mars and Jupiter. We're applying them to planet Earth.
Geoscientist Jim Garvin studies satellite images for NASA. He says the best known uses of satellite images may be for weather maps. These are satellite images of the Pacific Ocean. They show scientists the shifting warm currents that create El Nino.
The subtleties of ocean circulation we can now sense from space by looking in these places where a human observer, even if we were in a satellite looking down, with all the great facilities of our eyes, would not see.
Remote images can make maps more precise and help city planners control development. Taken over time, they show us the destruction of a rainforest. The information helps scientists measure the effect on global warming. Satellites are sending us images that were once only available for government spies. This is a picture of a Russian nuclear submarine taken from 200 miles in space. Before satellites, archaeology was a hit-or-miss business. Searches were based on rumors, suspicions, intuition.
Kind of like finding a needle in a haystack. Another approach to that, which has been made possible by satellite remote sensing, allows us to survey large areas where there is perhaps only the shadow of a doubt. There might be some vestige of these last lost civilizations. Places that are now completely forested over or buried by 3 to 10 feet of sand.
These satellite images clearly show the Great Wall of China. Erosion has made it almost invisible to the naked eye. It's those mounds just this side of the tree-lined road. This image reveals more than 100 square miles of ancient urban construction hidden under the trees around the sacred city of Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Satellite images are helping this man, Dr. Richard Hansen, find an ancient Mayan city lost deep in the forbidding rainforests of Guatemala.
Back up here, and this is an area we call the Mirador Basin. It's confined.
Hansen gained world fame when he discovered ancient Mayan temples in Guatemala. Built 2,500 years ago, Nakbe was the oldest Mayan site ever found. Dr. Hansen is returning to the area to find a city he believes is filled with royal Mayan tombs. It's down there somewhere, hidden under the jungle canopy of the Patan rainforest. The last stop on the local airline is Flores. Then it's overland by truck to Carmelita. From there, Hansen will have to hack his way north through the rainforest. Hansen directs the transfer of a small mountain of scientific and video equipment. Each item is crucial for the difficult trek into the wilderness. The team worries that the satellite data are misleading. The Mayan temples it detected could be nothing more than outcroppings of rocks. The journey starts along the shores of Lake Bataan. The last Mayan kings held out here against Spanish conquerors until the dawn of the 18th century. Mayan civilization is 3,000 years old. In 1000 BC, deep in the tropical rainforests of Central America, Mayans began one of the great civilizations of the ancient world. When most Europeans still lived as nomadic barbarians, the Maya built magnificent temples. When Greeks lived in small city-states, Mayans organized tens of thousands of people into sophisticated societies. There were nobles and priests, merchants and warriors. When the Roman Empire was still a dream, Mayan civilization stretched from Mexico to Costa Rica. Today, the Maya's monumental civilization is a memory. Its ancient temple cities are buried in the jungle, its descendants scattered. Hansen had one more stop to make before heading into the rainforest, at Conservation International. The regional office here studies the Bataan rainforest.
Un placer, un placer. ¿Y qué novedades? Ya sé de la
Carlos Sosa is the director.
Hasta el día que sucedió me mandaron un email para allá.
Conservation International monitors changes in the forests using satellite images.
This is Mexico, the state of Campeche. This is the central Bataan, the north central Bataan.
Hansen needs their latest satellite information, and he wants to let the staff know of his own plans.
Now, the site that we're looking for is Wakna.
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 What does that mean in...
The House of Six.
How?
Archaeologists named the site Wakna because the shapes the satellites identified resemble the ancient Mayan character for the number 6.
The satellite is crucial to understanding the artificial formations and the artificial development of this area. Now this is right here. Let's see, where are we? Right here. This site, Carlos, doesn't have a trail to it. No hay brecha.
No? Oh, not a Chiclero trail to go there?
No.
Oh, so it's
it's
virgin.
Yeah, it's virgin.
The team is heading deep into the rainforest to the town of Carmelita, the last place on the map, the frontier. Carmelita looks serene, but one of Hansen's local supporters was murdered here the week before.
We know the guy that did the deed is still out there somewhere. He took off in the bush and hasn't been captured.
The killer will be hard to find. Outsiders, especially archaeologists, are not always welcome here.
It's rugged, it's primitive. This is a frontier environment. There are no legal authorities here. From here on to the north is absolute wilderness. It's the same kind of environment you would find in 1860 in Colorado.
A rainforest version of the Wild West. Some villagers survive by clear-cutting the forests for cattle and crops. Others sell Mayan artifacts, believing it is their right. Hansen and his team headed out with 36 mules and 16 chicleros, local workmen who know the rainforest. They were following in the footsteps of a Mayan grave robber called Choro de Humo. He told Hansen about a royal tomb he'd looted that held 26 pounds of precious jade, over 1,000 years old. Hansen was looking for the looter city, a city of royal tombs and fabulous treasure. A city lost to the jungle and rediscovered from space.
That colors look good.
Roger that, looks great.
The lost city of Wakna is in the Mirador Basin of northern Guatemala, somewhere. It's down there, but even if we zoom in closer, we see only tree canopy, and much of the time the canopy is covered with clouds. These images were taken by sensors on satellites that gather light reflected from Earth. The satellites transform the light waves into digits and beam the data to receiving stations back on Earth via radio waves.
Landsat, as capable as it was, can't see the surface of the Earth through a cloud. By using microwave imaging techniques, which we call synthetic aperture radars, we can see through the clouds and see the land underneath.
The image on the right was taken by a video camera. The image on the left was taken by radar.
You might think of this in an analogy with the good old Star Trek world, where Captain Kirk would command Spock to turn on the scanners and let's look for things. Well, we can now turn on scanners and, in a sense, remove the trees and ask what's left.
TV cameras can give spectacular pictures of the night lights of New York City, but radar images can see through the dark and show pictures of Earth in the black of night. They can monitor an oil spill even when the ocean is covered with clouds or hidden in the night. This is a radar image of one of the most inaccessible glaciers in the world, taken over the mountains of Chile at close to midnight.
It's no different than an ultrasound scan that might be taken of a human being who wants to see inside the body. And that ultrascan collects information, bouncing sound waves off the body. It's converted into zeros and ones, packaged by a computer, and reassembled into a picture.
Radar is only one small part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
The colors we see are rays of light that in fact are in a very narrow range. The range is, a billion times wider. And when we look where our eyes can see, right next door to that is the ultraviolet. We don't see that, but yet we get a sunburn from it.
Beyond the ultraviolet is infrared light that helps us see in the dark, X-rays that peer inside the human body. Radar guides our planes, and microwaves heat up our pizza. So we can sit in front of our TV sets and watch pictures brought by television waves.
It's an incredible continuum. It's almost hard to imagine.
Scientists use all these waves to create images of Earth.
You're looking at a huge expanse of desert. This is, in fact, the Spot Landsat composite image. It's over 60 kilometers across, about 40 miles, a little under 40 miles.
Ron Blum is a geologist. He works at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where scientists made a startling discovery. Looking at images of the Sahara, they realized radar could see through 6 feet of dry sand as easily as we see through a windshield. The image on the outside is what the human eye can see. The radar image in the middle shows a 15,000-year-old river system buried under the sand.
Because of the unique environmental conditions in an area like southern Arabia, the radar can actually penetrate through a thin cover of sand.
News of that remarkable feat brought JPL and Ron Blum to the attention of archaeologists. They had spent years searching for a lost city called Ubar, somewhere in the Arabian desert. According to legend, Ubar had been buried in the sand, God's punishment for its wicked ways. Far from the coast, Ubar lay deep in the Arabian desert. It had become wealthy through trade in a rare substance that grows in the eastern foothills of these mountains, frankincense. It still grows there, silver frankincense, the very best. Harvested by hand, the white sap hardens into fragrant crystals. In ancient times, frankincense was more precious than gold. It was burned in sacred temples throughout the ancient world and used to heal the sick. Caravans carried frankincense from Arabia to the kingdoms of the West. And Ubar was their storied jewel. Blum's search began with a set of tracks found in 1924 by English explorer Bertram Thomas.
The best lead we had at the beginning was this track that Bertram Thomas reported. And we were able to acquire Landsat and SPOT image data for these tracks.
Bertram Thomas became the first Westerner to cross the forbidding sands of the Rub al Khali Desert, but he ran out of water before finding Ubar. In 1956, a young American, Wendell Phillips, set out across the sands and discovered what may have been part of the same caravan route marked by 84 parallel camel tracks. But Phillips, also running low on water, was forced to turn back. Ron Blum was able to find the camel track sitting at his computer in Pasadena.
Bertram Thomas's road is down in this area and then disappears into the sand dunes. The blue, by the way, is
For thousands of years, camel caravans broke down the desert sand into fine dust. You can see the dust trails on satellite images, but they're impossible to see when you're driving right on top of them.
As we started mapping out the tracks on them, we discovered that all of the tracks went through this area right in here. So we realized that this must be an important place.
The two modern roads are clear, but the satellite images also reveal the more ancient camel routes. Convinced they had found the site to Ubar, Blum and the archaeologists headed out across the desert.
Well, I think you want to generally aim for that.
At the location they'd identified, they discovered a small fort built to defend a precious aquifer on the ancient frankincense road from Arabia. In 300 AD, the fort fell into the sand when its underground aquifer collapsed. In its prime, an opulent tent city may have surrounded the precious waterhole, creating the legend of Ubar.
And there's something that stands to the south there, too.
This time, Ron Blum is helping Dr. Richard Hansen locate possible sites for the lost city of Wakna.
We saw some circular images.
What I think you get out of this are really targets. You find areas that you don't know what they are or that look interesting, and now you know exactly where to go. Yeah. It's difficult to know exactly what something is on here.
Swamp vegetation.
The only way to confirm the satellite data is to go and look. And there's only one way to get to the possible site. Hansen and his team have to walk mile after mile, day after day. Even in the dry season, humidity can soar to 100%. The heat is oppressive, and the sweat pours out at 2 gallons a day. Swarms of insects attack suddenly. Ticks work their way under your clothes. For as long as they can, the team will follow chicle trails made by men who tap the chicle trees to extract its sap.
That's the old chicle sap. See how it drips? This is the chico zapote tree, and this is the resin that comes out, the base for chewing gum. One of the keys to the protection of this forest would be if we could find better and more uses of this natural product and let this forest be self-sustaining.
The trail drops into the first of many lowland swamps called bajos. In the dry season, the bajos are rough walking. In the rainy season, they are almost impassable. The ancient Maya built roads raised above these marshes, 60 feet wide and plastered white. 2,000 years ago, this jungle wilderness was a different place. Hansen's team would be walking through farmland, past homes and villages, toward a legendary city of temples soaring above the canopy.
Liftoff. Liftoff.
Shuttle launches are so routine, they no longer make headlines. But each new mission sends astronauts and scientists aloft to push the envelope of human understanding. When we started exploring space, we were most interested in looking away from Earth.
We took early pictures of the moon and Mars better than some of those that we were actually taking of our own planet. And had it not been for our astronauts, like Senator Glenn and others, flying in these early human spacecraft, clicking cameras out the windows, we wouldn't have seen the Earth, you know, as a planetary object and looked at it in the ways in which we now can.
When astronaut Ed White made the first walk in space, he carried a camera to record pictures of Earth. On every space mission since, photography of Earth became more and more common. Astronauts now use video cameras, large format still cameras, digital cameras, and a variety of other imaging techniques. Satellites take radar images, laser images, and images based on the subtle measurement of heat on Earth. We have looked at every part of the land and sea, and it has changed the way we see our planet. Travelers in space, floating weightless in their high-tech capsules, seem far removed from ancient cities of stone and mud. Yet, they are the key to sky archaeology. Field researchers like Dr. Richard Hansen still must slog through the jungle to see if the images from space have been read correctly. Halfway through the first day's hike, they replenished their water at a rainforest swamp. Everyone drank a quart an hour to stave off the heat.
This is where he lives. The swamp is what we think the original bajos looked like. The original swampland that we've been walking through those bajo areas, it looked like that marsh back there. And that's what drew the Maya to this area.
When archaeologists first began exploring aerial images of Guatemala, they realized that large parts of the Mirador Basin were bajos. In this image, they're the white areas north of Lake Bataan. Radar images made by beaming microwaves to Earth and measuring the echo that bounces back were among the most useful. Radar images are black, white, and various shades of gray. Where most of the signal bounces back from a vertical surface, the image is white. Where most of it bounces away from the surface of a lake, the image is black. The various tones of gray come from broken terrain. Scientists color the black and white images to emphasize different details. In this image, the bajos are blue and the upland forests are shades of green. 2,000 years ago, Hansen believes, those blue areas were like this pond and the swamp that surrounds it.
The Maya in this basin settled in a very concentrated, spectacular settlement occupation.
When the whole basin was this wet, there would have been plenty of water and rich soil for an extensive agricultural system.
That wetland marsh area is a very humid, rich area, full of organic material, full of life.
From space, the bajos and uplands between the town of Carmelita and the possible site of Huacna looks like an easy walk. On the ground, it's endless. After 8 hours of hiking, dusk fell. In the dark, the team stumbles on. And makes camp close to midnight. Hansen's team awoke in the heart of the rainforest. The monkeys that had howled at the team the night before tried once again to drive the intruders from their camp. Hansen's team had hiked 12 hours deep into the rainforest. Finally, Hansen could take his first reading on a handheld global positioning satellite receiver.
Saved it, let's get it back here. 2 satellites are kicking in the data. Okay, we're gonna find the third one here. If I can just alter this just a little bit.
It's a remarkable tool, but the rainforest has to cooperate. Hansen needed a clear line of sight to orbiting satellites. The handheld GPS receiver picks up signals from a grid of satellites orbiting around the Earth.
Bingo. Got all 3 satellites, which have now
Global positioning satellites are essential for navigation on boats and to keep track of long-distance truckers. In some state-of-the-art cars, they can even guide drivers to a good restaurant.
To the highlighted route.
As the Chicleros start to break camp, Hansen checks the GPS coordinates with the satellite maps on his computer.
We are located right here at Ramonal, and we're going to be going to the site of Huacna, which is right about in this area here.
The team had camped on an ancient Mayan city. To an untrained eye, it looks like a natural clearing in the rainforest. But centuries ago, several thousand people may have lived here.
It's hard to see it unless you know it's right there. But from the satellite data, they can pick out that type of data.
The black and white radar images can be analyzed to identify the sharp edges of ancient buildings and stone cliffs, like this escarpment near Huacna.
And we're going to be going skirting along the edge of that escarpment, going along in kind of a easterly direction, and then we'll head straight south off the trail.
Back on the trail, the team climbs gradually up, out of the Bajo, into the upland forests, where Mayans put their largest settlements.
The trail comes through the bush onto a little platform, and actually we're standing on a Maya platform. Off to one side of this platform, we've got a looter's trench. We just found it.
The looters dug straight through the stone facing, into the rock and mud fill, looking for ancient Mayan artifacts.
Bushes, this is the damage that is done by looting. The building's actually destroyed and of very limited use scientifically.
The team continued to climb. After several hours in the upland forest, they discovered a tree with unusual markings.
Now, Rich, is this, do you recognize this?
Are there,
The symbols had been left by the looter who had befriended Hansen.
All right, okay, speak.
They all have their own little sign. It all means something different to each one of them. But I recognize the chorro de humo, we call him, a stream of smoke, because he always smoked.
Chorro de Humo had stolen 26 pounds of jade from a royal Mayan tomb. It was worth a fortune. A single jade mask could sell for over $400,000. But the looters get almost nothing. Most of the profit goes to middlemen. Chorro de Humo squandered his small cut on wine and women. He died without a penny. The marked tree was near the spot where Hansen planned to lead the trail. If looters had gotten to Huacna before him, the tombs could already be plundered. The team moved slowly up a slight incline. After several hours, the ground leveled off. Hansen's team had arrived at a huge man-made platform the size of half a football field. It was hidden under a layer of dirt and debris overgrown with trees. They camped at what they hoped was the outskirts of the royal city of Huacna. Within a few hours, they would know if the satellite search had paid off.
Target 1 body vector pi with the pitch roll, pitch yaw, no Omicron.
The search for the lost city of Huacna began 100 or 200 miles above the Earth. Sky archaeology uses the latest technology to analyze images and create precise pictures of the Earth's landscape.
In some cases, we can see beneath the canopy of trees to see ancient buildings. We can also, extremely new technique, actually measure the ground under the trees with laser beams to find the lay of the land beneath the jungles that have sprung up sometimes in only the last few hundred years, and ask ourselves, boy, was that land originally modified by human beings?
The team camps on an ancient Mayan platform. It's hard to see, but Hansen is walking on a 2,000-year-old Mayan road. It's 90 feet wide and built up 12 feet above the surrounding rainforest. Flying directly above the causeway, you still can't see it through the trees. From higher up, the causeway is just visible on the right side of the screen. Sky archaeologists can see the Mayan roads best from space, 100 or 200 miles away. Using satellite images and computer modeling, they can create a three-dimensional map, like this one, and can fly down the causeway. As new imaging techniques come online, the images will get sharper. It's a field archaeologist's dream. Archaeologists have always tried to get up higher to look around. When hot air balloons became the rage 100 years ago, the military quickly realized their importance.
From air, balloonists will spot enemy positions and guide fire of Allied artillery. Here's what it looks like from skybound basket underneath balloon.
But archaeologists were not far behind. In 1906, a British Army lieutenant photographed Stonehenge using an Army war balloon. Then came the airplane. Not long after the Wright brothers flew the first plane at Kitty Hawk, Wilbur Wright filmed an ancient Roman aqueduct. In World War I, air reconnaissance helped flyers find targets and drop bombs on them. After the war, aviators and adventurers around the world hopped into airplanes in search of lost cities. Charles Lucky Lindbergh was the most famous aviator of them all. He was an overnight sensation after flying the Spirit of St. Louis across the Atlantic Ocean in 1927. 2 years later, Lindbergh flew over Chaco Canyon in Arizona. His wife, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, took photographs that revealed hidden ruins. Archaeologists later determined Anasazi Indians had built them 1,000 years earlier. A few months later, the Lindberghs flew over Central America looking for Mayan ruins. World War II brought huge technological advances in aerial photography and the development of the jet. Then, just 12 years after World War II ended, the Russians launched Sputnik, the first satellite to circle the Earth. Over the next few years, dozens of satellites were put into orbit. Tyros 1, the first weather satellite. Echo 1, the first communications satellite. A huge balloon that reflected radio waves from one place on Earth to another. In 1961, the United States launched Explorer 12, and a 16mm camera took time-compressed pictures of clouds over the South Pacific. At first, we looked at the planet as a whole. We were stunned by how fragile it looked in the immense universe. Then, we looked more closely. Cities took on a new perspective. We could watch the course of flooding on the Mississippi River. We saw Kuwait before the Gulf War, during the massive oil fires set by Saddam Hussein. And we can see the scars the fires left behind. Spectacular images are only one component of sky archaeology. The other part is the work done by computer analysts like Brian Clore. He works for Erdus, a company that develops the computer software scientists use to analyze satellite images. Computers can combine different images of the same terrain and come up with pictures that are accurate, but like nothing we've ever seen before. Like this flyby from Lake Tahoe over the Sierra Nevada mountains to Death Valley. A similar technique helped geologists study lava flows on Mount Pinatubo. The red areas are ash deposits from the 1991 eruption. The dark areas are mud flows that still inundate the valleys after heavy rains. Brian Clore combined images of the Mirador Basin to help Dr. Hansen find the lost city of Huacna. First, he looked at Mayan temples that have already been discovered.
This is the site known as El Mirador, and we can see here on the right side of the right image several very bright spots, and therefore the sensor can pick them up very clearly.
Clore then created a model of these known temples that showed a distinctive pattern, different from the surrounding landscape.
Based on these three sites, we can assume that indeed these things do stick up out of the canopy enough that the radar signal can detect them.
Without the model, the area Hansen believed was the site of Huacna showed nothing but jungle canopy. But Clore's model identified at least 2 possible temple sites and provided their exact coordinates. This is the essence of sky archaeology, identifying surface features that are different from the surrounding natural landscape, what scientists call anomalies.
We see an anomaly, something that doesn't fit the nature of that landscape. The land has been changed. The trees grew back a little, but they're different than all their surrounding ones. Might people have cut them down and built a city? Maybe the city's gone. Maybe the city's covered with ash, as in some cases, from a cataclysmic volcanic eruption, as has been hypothesized for the lost civilization of Atlantis.
Brian Clore analyzed the probable site of Huacna. He discovered 2 pyramids and a huge platform. Clore marked the sites on his 3-dimensional map. If he's right, Hansen is camped on a platform next to the temples. The chicleros began clearing the platform to reveal its basic structure. They worked carefully, made cautious by experience.
We got to be careful because there's snakes here. We have to be careful because the snakes have got their own residences and we're intruding essentially on their domain. Since nobody's been in here, it's just as wild as it can possibly be.
The most feared snake is the fer de lance, aggressive, ill-tempered, deadly.
Since the snakes are large, there's a lot of venom injected, and sometimes the victims have multiple bites. Victims will be bleeding from the eyes, the nose, the ears, and basically an ill-tempered snake.
From here on, the archaeologist wore snake gaiters, plastic guards that fit around the calves.
Okay, we're going up a platform. A large pre-plastic platform here. Everything that we've climbed up here is artificial. Everything underneath is artificial. So we've gone about 8 meters.
It was a gigantic platform, raised 30 feet above the forest floor. Hansen had found part of a monumental Mayan city. Hansen measured the huge platform.
Okay, that's 220 meters long. 220 yards long here, going through this, on this east side of this platform. One of the most incredible constructions that I'm aware of, and it's so early.
Was this the platform Brian Clore had identified in his computer model 1,500 miles away?
This is a brief sketch of the platform of the northern group. And we're standing right about in here at the base of this real low mound. And then in the background is this, this structure right here, centrally located, kind of an acropolis formation.
Hansen's team walked from the small platform they'd camped on, up first one, then a second, larger platform. They were standing in front of a large building. Behind them, a temple, 5 stories high, rose from the other end of the platform.
It's only just a few areas of the world that you can find remains of ancient civilizations that are still unknown.
At Tikal, a later Mayan site, archaeologists have partially cleared some temples, revealing their basic architecture. Huacna was most likely equally monumental, with shimmering white plaster causeways and deep russet temples. Engineers and laborers built the temples, and priests held sacred rituals, dressed in exotic colors and materials.
They're wearing feathers, they're wearing cotton tunics, they're wearing cotton skirts, jaguar skin pelts, all the trappings of ritual, jade plaques and jade belt, jade or decorated belts. They wore jade ear spools. They had inlaid hematite and jade in the teeth. When you smiled, you had a teeth bowl of inlaid jade and hematite.
Isidro Garcia. ¿Quién falta? Alex.
Dr. Hansen was at the end of his quest. All that remained was climbing the temple to confirm his discovery with a GPS reading. At one end of the platform, Hansen found a man-made mound over 5 stories high. It was a hard, steep climb, up remnants of stairs covered with 2,000 years of debris and vegetation.
Things they grab you.
Trees covered the top of the temple. This is why it's so difficult to identify Mayan temples from the air.
Oh man, we got a canopy here.
It was impossible to get a reading.
Ah, one's logged on. 2 satellites have logged on. We got 2 satellites. I need to see if we can't get maybe on the other side of this big tree.
The temple had to be cleared to get a clear line of sight to the satellites.
'77, now 74.
Once he had his exact location, Hansen used a satellite telephone to contact Brian Clore back in the United States.
This is Brian.
Is this Brian Clore from Erdas?
Yes, it is.
Brian, this is Dr. Richard Hansen.
Hey, Richard. How you doing?
Calling from the top of a Maya pyramid at Huacna.
Oh, that's great.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
Now, we also can bring you up on the computer screens here, and we've got both our Apple computers are bringing up this information.
The site that I marked turned out to be a temple?
Very close, yes. We got 2 major groups, and each one of those groups has 9 major buildings.
Hansen wanted to know if Clore had found other temples nearby. He had, 600 meters to the north.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is remarkable that I can be sitting here in Atlanta and participate in the thrill of discovery without even having to leave the office.
Looking out from the cleared temple, Hansen could see other major Mayan cities in the distance. The large temple of El Mirador thrust above the rainforest on the horizon. 2,000 years ago, this vast basin, the size of Rhode Island, was a thriving center with perhaps 100,000 people. The land out there was cleared and cultivated. Hansen explored further and stumbled onto a trench dug into the side of the temple.
Oh man, there's pretty classic murals here. No, there's part of a text still here. Oh, wow.
Archaeologists have only recently broken the key to the ancient Mayan language. Any newly discovered text could be of major significance. Looters had destroyed part of this text, but it extended back into the building. Excavation could uncover much more.
It's a little bit spooky though, because you never know when those darn snakes gets in here. And these old trenches are great places for snakes to live. They like to hang out in here.
Hansen believes this was the tomb of a royal Mayan king or priest, perhaps the trench looted by Chorro de Humo.
The elite ruler was put right on this floor. This is astonishing. What it makes, look, there's something inscribed on the wall here. See this? See all these lines that are inscribed in there? One of the real tragedies is that we lost this tomb. We have no knowledge. Something, let's see if there's any more. See how they move their hand? You can actually see the fingerprints right here. They took their hand and just swirl, just make that smooth. When they brought it into place, you can see all those designs. It was in immaculate condition, pristine condition when it was buried. But now, since archaeologists didn't find it and the looters did, it's been destroyed.
These are the kinds of objects that have been found in other Mayan tombs. All that remained in the looted tomb at Wakna, a few pre-classic pieces of pottery, left behind because to looters they have little value.
Colors. It's got a flange on it.
Further exploration revealed that much of the site had never been touched. It will take decades to fully uncover the secrets of Wakna. Priceless treasures could still lie undisturbed. To accurately date Wakna, Hansen started a small excavation in a lower platform. The last thing he wanted to do was to find anything of real value. Knowledge of a major find would spread rapidly, and looters would be drawn to Wakna. The Chicleros worked slowly and systematically, cutting roots with their machetes and taking out the dirt layer by layer.
We're right into the middle of it, and it's a fill layer. You can see those small stones that are coming out now. A layer of small stones shows the...
They found an obsidian blade, a Mayan pocket knife, which was still sharp. It was traded from a site hundreds of miles away, dating back 2,000 years.
Fine obsidian blade from El Chayal. It looks like the obsidian source has the appearance of coming from El Chayal.
Under a layer of large rocks, they encounter an even older civilization. In less than a foot in the lower platform, the dig had moved back in time several hundred years.
Whoa! Now we're in the middle preclassic stuff. This is one of the imported conch shells from the Caribbean. And this shell is only found in our earliest deposits.
That could be 600 BC, 400 years after Mayans moved into the Mirador Basin.
What we're trying to do is collect the material directly off the floor, which will let us date the floor and the occupation associated with that floor. And we use flotation too, where we actually get the water, get organic remains. Yeah, I'm going to put it almost there. I know it's chert.
They continued working into the night. The Chicleros had gotten down 4 feet, where they found a small piece from a figurine dating back to 600 BC.
We had figurines from the earliest levels. That's not big.
Late that night, celebrating around a campfire, Hansen explained why Wakna could be so important. Mayans identified the campfire with the creation of the world. Every Mayan fire, even today, is built around 3 hearthstones. The hearthstones represent 3 stars in the constellation of Orion. For the ancient Mayans, the fire that burned between them represented the fire of creation.
Okay.
3 ancient cities in the Mirador Basin also follow the stars' alignment in Orion's belt. Guatemalan lies between them. Could it symbolize the fire of creation? It may be the most sacred site of all. Mayans looked to the heavens to understand their place in the world. Sky archaeology looks down from space to understand the ancient Maya. Remarkable new imaging techniques let scientists search back in time.
Imagine having a map of how tall the trees are for the entire planet, measured with laser beams from 200 miles up in space. Imagine understanding the total circulation of the ocean systems over a period of multiple years. Imagine understanding where might early human, pre-civilization humans have first prospered. I think the future is going to be astounding.
It is only the beginning of what we will learn, staring at the Earth from outer space.